Building authority in your niche or industry is often talked about, but drawing a correlation to revenue growth is often a more difficult and challenging conversation. So it leaves me wondering if we can truly embrace authority marketing and shift our focus from traditional metrics to more human centric content strategies to truly revolutionize the way B2B tech companies, in particular, generate predictable revenue growth. We'll dive into that in a moment with our guest. But first, hello and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast brought to you by Sproutwith.com. I'm Vinay Koshy and our guest is Frank Husmann. Frank, you are the founder of Maxiality, an authority marketing agency. In fact, you have something like 20 plus years of experience in B2B marketing, exited two companies, and with your current agency, you're really hoping to transform B2B SaaS companies into the number one choice in their industry. I'm curious, why take the journey from your previous exits into creating an authority marketing agency? Was there a particular incident or event that triggered this journey? If so, could you tell us about it?
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. So basically, my previous company was a SaaS company, and I sold it a few years ago. I think it was 3 years ago now.
Mm.
And after that, I thought, let's relax a little, right? Then people started calling me, and that was especially were founders of SaaS companies, but also investors that invested in SaaS companies. And they asked me a little bit about the marketing and sales of SaaS companies. Can you please help this company I invested in, or can you please help me because I founded this company? And that's how the ball started rolling, actually. And the thing is that the playbooks that worked for my SaaS, which I started, I think it was 9 years ago now, those are completely different than the ones that work right now. So at some point in my current journey, we started systemizing and productizing our services. And one of the things that really worked for our clients was, just making sure that authority marketing is in place.
I know there's uh, perhaps different nuances to this idea of authority marketing. So I'm curious, how would you define authority marketing?
Yeah, authority marketing boils down to making sure that the expertise that's inside of the company and inside the heads of most of the time, it's the founder that we're working with, but it can be any subject matter expert that is inside the company. We'll use that expertise and make sure that it's being sent to all the right channels where your ICP is at. And if you do that consistently for some time, you will become the expert in a niche. And if you do it even longer, then you'll be the authority in the niche. And that just make sure that you just draw opportunities towards you. You don't have to work that hard to because you're the one person that they want to work with.
Mhm.
And this is especially important. It's important in any B2B company. It doesn't matter if you're just selling pens or paper, but especially when it comes to software, you can't touch it, right? You can't put it inside of a box. There are some other people as well that might be competitors from you for you. So showing your expertise is really one great way to stand out.
Mhm. I certainly understand that. I'm sure many of those listening in would too. However, given the vast array of strategies and options that we have in B2B marketing, let alone marketing itself, why authority marketing?
Yeah. So what we've seen is that this is the best way to generate demand and to capture it. That's the short answer.
Okay.
And the long answer is the way that we're doing it is so when you boil it all down to B2B marketing, you got, especially in SaaS, you got a couple of go-to market motions that you
Mhm.
can use. Inbound and outbound, for example, are two of those motions that you can use. You can use community, you can go product-led, whatever. But we've seen that a combination of inbound and outbound works best for SaaS companies. Of course, it depends on the stage, but it's from early stage to even further on in their journey. And the way that we've been doing it is leveraging the knowledge of the founder. And we just do it by interviewing them for 1 hour in the month.
Mhm.
And we'll create lots of content from that. And the best performing content we'll use to amplify with ads into their ICP. So it's both organic and it's both paid as well. And this just works brilliantly. And the next thing is that the content that we've created can be used for outbound sales as well,
Mhm.
or as a sales library. So yeah, it's combining a lot of things.
Hmm. Brilliant. And given your journey to date, what would you say is your personal area of strength?
My personal area of strength is actually a combination of marketing, tech, and sales. I've always been doing that for at least 20
Okay.
years.
Yep.
And what I've noticed that people that have these knowledge of these different fields are different and can also think like an entrepreneur because it's not easy to think as a marketeer, but it's Sometimes it can be checkbox marketing, right? Just create a blog, create a social post. But if you think as an entrepreneur, and that really helps you to get to the goals that the founder wants, and the founder isn't really interested in, we generated 100 leads this month. It's definitely not something that they're interested in. They want to know, okay, so what did you create from that, and what did it end up to be? So yeah, that kind of helps.
So, in that area of strength, what would you say is something that businesses don't know but should?
So yeah, what they don't know, yeah, that's a great question actually. And most of the time, what there are so many assumptions. So you're just sitting in your office or wherever you're at, just with closed doors, closed rooms, and you think of great features to create or great services to create. But the thing is that maybe you're not solving the right problem, or maybe you're not even solving a problem. And one analogy I always is, are you creating like a vitamin or a painkiller? What is it what you're trying to do, right? Because if someone is in pain right now, they want to buy your service or your software. But so what I'm trying to say is, please talk to your customers, please talk to your prospects. That's something that most B2B companies, but maybe B2C as well, I don't really know, but most companies are just starting out with a product, and at some point it's just adding more features, adding more things, but they just miss talking to customers. And if you do that correctly, you will always create a product that works for your market, for your ICP.
Thank you for that. Now, earlier on, you talked about inbound and outbound and authority marketing as a great way to achieve both. I'm curious, when people talk about outbound, especially in the sales context, they're often thinking of cold calling, email, etc. How would you say authority marketing differs from traditional perceptions of outbound sales?
Yeah, it's always a part of the whole motion. So we're, of course, as marketeers, we're helping sales generate the sales, right? And the end of the day, we're helping the company generate sales. So we work together with sales. And once we create the content from the founder, sales can use it as well. And what we're doing is that we're making sure that their prospects will see that content as well. So it can be easily integrated in a direct outreach campaign, whether it's email or direct message on LinkedIn. And we use, most of the time, we use LinkedIn. So that's one great way to do it.
Essentially, you're taking snippets of that longer content form and really putting it in front of your intended audience. So, would that be correct?
Yeah, we're building a big library actually, and the library is on YouTube. It's on the website as well.
Right.
It's video content. It's on the website. It's blogs on the website. But there are also small snippets, and the small snippets that we'll create for LinkedIn organic posts, for example. We'll use it for YouTube Shorts if the ICP is there. And after a month, we'll analyze what we've done, and we'll amplify the best snippets basically with ads. And most of the time, that's on LinkedIn. And if you do that correctly with a cold layer and a warm layer where people are more interested in your product or services, you will notice that people will raise their hand, and they will go to your website, fill in a form for a demo or whatever. And it's really completely opposite of creating lots of ads basically to create conversions, going great leads, because anyone in the past created a white paper based on, I don't know, an intern that wrote something. Now they even go wild with ChatGPT, and yeah, that playbook is definitely not working anymore.
Okay. So, would you say that in most companies there is a level of skepticism towards the marketing qualified lead metric?
That's definitely a great question. The marketing qualified lead. This also boils down to, what does C-level want? What does the founder want? The founder only wants opportunities, and opportunities that's going to be a deal, right?
Yep.
We've all been brainwashed by attribution software, by HubSpot, whatever companies and playbooks that we used in the past, that we need to create a lot of leads. So we need to create lots of marketing qualified leads. So that's one thing. That's the thing that has been going on for years now. And there's a definition problem, because sales has got a very different opinion about the marketing qualified lead than the marketeers have. And you will probably have a different one than I will have. So that's also an interesting debate. First of all, we need to talk about, what do we think is a marketing qualified lead, of course. That's something that most people will agree upon. But this whole discussion, it really depends on what kind of C-level you got. If they're coming from a transaction-oriented company that has always been leads, or a B2C-oriented company, it's really hard to tell them that, hold on a second, there's only 3% in market right now for your solution. And it's really costly. Everyone is targeting those 3%, and it's really costly to just advertise them and to reach them, especially nowadays. because that's the prices have been going up to reach those people. So what if you would focus on the 97% that's not yet in market, but if they are going to be in market and you're going to educate them, you will be in the top 5 or top 8 lists on the short list at some point. And that's a whole different perspective. And people, there's been so much research about it that they only want to buy from a company they already know, they've already seen. So what if you're going to be there, show your expertise, that really works. For us, for our clients, they totally understand this. So it's not never a discussion. But I also coach some marketeers, and they always got the question, my director, my CEO wants me to tell me how many leads we're going to generate. And then it's going to be an interesting talk. So I hope that clarifies a little bit about my perspective and how you should go about it. At the end of the day, you should work together and create the demand by showing your expertise. And of course, you need to still measure all the things that we talked about, but don't focus on the MQLs. I don't focus on it anymore at all, because there might be webinar invites or the downloads of whatever white paper. My personal opinion is make sure that all the content is accessible. Don't gate anything that you would have to pay for. And all the rest is just hand raisers. And those will be sales qualified opportunities.
So, what metrics do you actually consider more indicative of success in today's marketing landscape?
Yeah, those will be SQOs, sales qualified opportunities from marketing. And this is still quite hard to, of course, measure, but we'll still do that. So that's one of the hard targets. Another one would be pipeline velocity. We'll check if the buyer journey is going to be shorter by using our showing the expertise. And yes, that definitely works. So that's another metric. And what we also check is brand. So you can check how many people will search for your brand by using Google Search Console, for example. And the fourth thing that we'll check is how big is your retargeting audience on ICP. So these are, for us, those are really important KPIs to look at. But at the end of the day, it boils down to how many opportunities did we generate and how many were going to be a deal from that. But yeah, it's more working together with sales. And yeah, this has always been a promise, of course, in B2B marketing, but changing buyer behavior and the changing online landscape, because 10 years ago we only had Google. It's now with dark social and stuff, it's really changed.
Yep. I'd be interested to understand what you identify as an opportunity. Would it actually be someone registering for a demo, since we're talking about SaaS companies, or is it a sales?
We work for high ticket. We work for high ticket SaaS. A demo is definitely one. And sometimes there's a trial, but for high ticket SaaS, there's not always a trial. But so a demo is definitely one, or watching a demo video. Yeah.
Okay. So that essentially means you're essentially having a sales conversation, and then you're able to evaluate where it's headed towards. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. We always make sure that there's an open box that people can add. How did you find us? Because that's something that people really miss.
Yeah.
Just of course, the self-attribution isn't always the greatest way to see if your marketing programs are working. But if you don't do it, you don't even know it at all, because we're having this podcast right now. And maybe someone will go to your website because of the things that we said, or go to my website, and it will be attributed to Google search SEO in your analytics platform. But the thing is, it was the podcast that made the first touch, right? So if you have an open field, or maybe even a drop down that you can select some things from, like the podcast, for example, Google or LinkedIn organic, LinkedIn ads, then you have way more view about what programs are working and what not.
Brilliant. I would imagine that there is both a mind shift as well as perhaps a bit of a heart shift required to convince at least some C-level executives to shift from traditional ways of marketing and sales to focusing on what the authority of marketing that you talk about, and of course, brand value. How do you help them navigate that journey?
Yeah, that's also a great question, because at the end of the day, we are lucky enough to make sure that the people that reach out to us they understand what we're coming from. So we don't really have much of a conversation about it, but I can imagine that might be people listening right now that are like, okay, yeah, I want to go for this, but how can I convince my C-level? And I think one of the things that's really important about that is that if you only focus on the 3% of people that are in market, you're going to lose at some point, because it's going to cost way too much. So you need to focus at some point on the 97% that are not yet in the market right now. So that calls for demand generation to a different playbook, let's put it that way. And one easier way to do it is just make sure that you still got the whole lead gen thing going, if you think that still works, if you still got it, but create some of that, get some of that budget and put it into demand generation. For example, you might be running Google Ads, you might be doing some other things on LinkedIn. See what campaigns can you trim off some fat and just use that to create some demand. So that would basically be my suggestion if you want to prove to C-level that it can work. And make sure that you have the self attribution set up, all that kind of stuff, so you can even show that it works. Yeah, that's basically what I would go about if you would need to convince someone. And then there's so much research. Actually, I think it was today that I read a report from, I think it was, I don't know who it was, but anyway, they analyzed about 50 SaaS companies in the US, and the ones that were really exceptionally well in terms of revenue, they all had an authority, or it wasn't called authority, but it's called thought leadership program going. I really hope that helps.
If I could put this another way, you're basically saying that companies that invest in building their brand tend to do better than the others. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that then of course there's the whole discussion: what is brand, and how do you define brand, and what is the brand? But if you talk about showing your expertise, you are going to be unique, and you have a unique point of view as well as a person, and the person is always tied to the company,
Yep.
right? So that's building a personal brand that helps the company brand as well. So what you're doing at some way is definitely branding. Yes.
Okay, so if we're looking at building a brand, I know some listeners will be going, "Man, that's an expensive exercise." But so is this actually feasible for, say, a smaller budget that we have? You mentioned earlier that you sit down with the CEO, perhaps of a company, for 1 hour a month in order to interview them and then repurpose that conversation or that content. In realistic terms, how feasible is it for perhaps a company with a smaller budget to invest in their brand and make a real headway in the short term or at least medium term?
Yeah. Great question. So basically, the budget thing is there is no reason to not do it with the shoestring budget. You can, if you don't advertise, you can go the organic route. So you don't even need budget for advertising. If you want to advertise, my suggestion would be probably your ideal client profile is on LinkedIn, and you can advertise on LinkedIn for $10 a month or so. Sorry, a day. So it's the minimum is about 300, 400 euros dollars that you will have to spend on LinkedIn. So that's not a lot, because most B2B companies generate a lot of things that they're selling are a lot higher. So that's talking about that's about advertising. But the things that you also need to do is, of course, it takes some time. Yeah, you need to create content as well. So my question would always be, what are you doing right now on B2B marketing? And often it is checkbox marketing. And what I mean by that is, okay, we have a content calendar for 3 months or so. We're going to write 2 blogs, month 1, 2 blogs, and we're going to do a webinar, and we're going to do some social posts, and we put them on the LinkedIn company page. That's really a short way of how some B2B marketers work. I hope I'm not offending anyone. And I call that checkbox marketing. So if you do a couple of steps back, you're like, okay, so what's this content about really? Is it, again, something about the 10 best CRMs for whatever, the best way to implement CRM software for market X? Don't do that. That's not really helpful. Just go a few steps back and really think about, what are the questions that you get pre-sales from sales? What are the questions you get from customer support? What has been the journey of the founder? What is his or her special knowledge about the market? What is something that he or she disagrees with that's really common knowledge in the market? So your own unique point of view. And then just sit down like this in some sort of podcast setting and record that. And then you've got lots of content that you can work with for at least 2 months. And it will make a lot more sense to your audience as well. So back then, it by then it boils down to just investing the time in it to do it. And that's actually where we come in at some point, because someone will go, wow, that's a lot of work. Yes, it is a lot of work, because but we've done it so many times right now. We've really systemized this. And it's just making sure there's 1 hour in a month with the founder, and then basically you take it from there. We'll create all the content, we'll do all the ads as well, we'll schedule anything, and we'll analyze it as well. So yeah, I think you should start as soon as possible, actually, because it's a great way to show your expertise. And if you do it for quite some time, you will definitely draw people towards you. And the results, I've seen results in a week, which was been exceptional. But in general, it would be in about 3 months or so. You will definitely see the results of doing this.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. So, with this particular strategy that you're advocating for, it seems to almost run counter to a lot of the conversations that are happening right now of leveraging AI to build out your content. Would that,
Mhm.
am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, so the whole AI thing. Well, I love to talk about. We use a lot of AI ourselves as well
Okay.
because I think the things that we're doing right now wouldn't even have been possible 5 years ago, and definitely not when I had my SaaS because it would be way too much work to do by people and it would be too expensive. We created about 50 blog articles each month for our SaaS clients about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And we did it in a couple of different languages as well. So some translations were there as well. But there are a couple of shifts that we've been seeing. First of all, the Google updates have been brutal lately. That's one. And the second one is that we didn't have a playbook yet that would create the demand and capture it as
Mhm.
well. So when we started using video and creating real expertise, things really shifted and we used LinkedIn in a way different way than we used to do before. So that led us to create the authority marketing playbook that we just discussed and we talked about. And the whole thing about AI is when that happened, when I think it was ChatGPT that started this, we had two choices. We would either go the whole quantity way of creating even more content or going the quality way. And that's actually what we've been doing right now. We are creating less blog articles, for example,
Mhm.
but we're creating way more content on all the different channels that our ICP is at. And that really helps because at the end of the day, it doesn't really work if you create so much crappy content, in my opinion, because I think we're all seeing right now that AI or any large language model is really great to use to get some inspiration, right? Or to ask some question that will help you if you're stuck into something. But creating complete articles by it, I would never advise anyone to do that. Just make sure that you always have some subject matter that can tie in some great knowledge and insight, or use your own data if you got it. And definitely SaaS companies have got it. Yeah, the AI thing is when you do the authority marketing playbook, you will become the source of AI in the end.
Hmm. So, how exactly do you use AI as part of your overall processes?
Yeah, when we interview a founder for 1 hour, of course, it's all prepared and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But anyway, when we got that, we got the transcript that's AI generated, and we'll use the transcript into, for example, Perplexity AI, and we'll ask Perplexity, please give me the best snippets of what this person said, and will also give me the time codes. That will really help the editor to create the snippets because I definitely don't trust tools like I don't know Opus or whatever what you got, and especially we're working in different languages as well. It might work for the English language we're using in the Western Europe. We use quite a lot of other language, and they're just not that good.
Mhm.
That's one thing. And the editor uses that time codes to create something beautiful. Still do it manually because we need it to be on brand. And some of these will work for corporate SaaS companies as well. They don't want to have any, I don't know, the Hormozy style or whatever Gary Vaynerchuk style subtitle. So it needs to be really on brand. So there are a couple of things that are generated by AI. The subtitles, of course, also the time code is the parts that we need to use. And then we got the snippets, and then we'll create the LinkedIn descriptions as well for the visuals to go by. We'll use some AI as well. Yeah, so it's integrated in lots of parts, to be honest. Yeah.
Hmm. Brilliant.
Most of it is for inspiration, to be honest, except for the whole time code thing.
Okay, more inspiration than actual content in itself. Terrific. Are there? I know we've talked about obstacles in moving towards sales and value focused marketing strategy, but are there other obstacles that you've observed that perhaps don't get mentioned very often?
I don't really know if you would call it obstacles, but so we've been talking a lot about online marketing,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes that focus is, it can be really about, we need to measure everything, everything needs to be online. But what I've been seeing is, especially if we're talking about a small set of companies that is your target audience, like account based marketing that we're
Mhm.
talking about, then it can be really great to go offline or even to send mails or letters or stuff like that, or do a roundtable session. And I know in this day and age, everyone goes zooming, whatever, but it might make sense to do a small roadshow or something like that. And this is something that, if you combine it with the authority part, you are going to stand out in the crowd for sure.
Hmm.
So it's something to consider. I've seen great results from just doing roundtable sessions.
Okay, wow. So when you say round table sessions, is that a bit like a mastermind?
Well, no, not really. No, actually, what we're doing is we're inviting 10 people from 10 different companies.
Mhm.
Most of them are going to be prospects, and we're going to talk about one specific subject. So it can be the state of PR or the challenges in HR, for example, if we're going to talk, or we're doing this with an HR software company. And this is just a relaxed setting on a great location with lunch or whatever, and people will talk about the subject because they all have got the same challenges and they will learn from each other, and it's not going to be recorded, it's not going to be broadcast or whatever.
Mhm.
Of course it can be used for input, but it's not, most of the time it's not really a marketing thing. Marketing will organize, of course, but it's most of the time the founder of the company who sits down with other company founders most of the time. And in a few months after these roundtables, people will get interested in the things that you're solving, of course.
Mhm.
So that works.
Okay, brilliant. Just coming back to the online space, would you say that the video content is underutilized in B2B marketing?
It's well, yeah, it's underutilized for sure, and there are a couple of reasons for that. It's sometimes it's people still think it's hard to create, but you see what we're doing right now,
Mhm.
right? It's just we're just talking with each other, so it's easy to record it and to create something with that. So I wouldn't assume anymore that it's hard to create, but that's still the mindset that people have. That's one thing, and the second thing is probably that they think they don't know what to say, right?
Mhm.
They might think it's going to be boring because B2B marketing, apparently some people think it's boring, but it's definitely not, because we're all humans, we all have got our own struggles, and we've got problems trying to solve, and your software, whatever, or your solutions can help them. So it's really interesting to talk about those challenges or how to overcome them, and even how did you create your own company, what things did you learn. It's always great to talk about that. So why not do that on video? I
Mhm.
think if I look back, if I think about what's going to happen in the future, I think that every B2B marketing team will be video first. So
Okay.
video will be the number one thing that they're going to use
Mhm.
for everything, and then break that down to, I don't know, blogs, articles, white paper, whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
snippets, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh,
So there's no reason to not do it.
uh, that raises an interesting point, at least in my mind, which is, are we seeing an increasing movement wherein companies, including B2B SaaS companies, have no choice but to become media companies as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's also about, so there's some other motions going on as well. I
Mhm.
think LinkedIn is going to push video as well. They have
Yeah.
already added like a small button in the beta, I think, or it's slowly rolling out. It's going to be more or less like a TikTok feed, but then for B2B on LinkedIn. So that's one really important motion. If
Yeah.
they believe in it, you almost have to move that
Yeah.
direction. And the other thing is that the people that are going to influence the buying decision or are going to be buyers, they don't know anything else than the Instagram reels that they've been seeing, the YouTube shorts that they've been seeing, and the TikTok videos that they have been watching. You have to adapt on your ICP at some point as well.
Mhm.
These are also two things that we have to include in our strategy as well, and the tactics
Yeah.
that we use when we want to reach those people.
Certainly. Now, how do you see the role of human to human connections involving in these B2B marketing strategies we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to be even more personal, because how many salespeople have you seen that send you a video, for example, in their outreach? I can count them on two hands, and it's so easy to do it. Why not send a video in your direct message on LinkedIn or in your outreach email, right? You can even automate it if you really want to go the AI
Mhm.
route, which I don't really advocate for, but there's so many great things that you can do to just stand out. That's basically the thing, because you remember that. So yeah, that would definitely be something to think about if you're going to use video in that way.
And to help us wrap our minds around this whole idea of authority marketing, could you share perhaps your experience with a or an client's experience of actually coming around to using authority marketing and how it's impacted their growth or market position?
Yeah. So I got lots of cases, but one of the cases that I always like to share is the one that was the fastest, got the fastest result.
Mhm.
We did an interview session, and we created some snippets and we posted it on LinkedIn. I think after 10 days or so, the first two demos started coming in only from that video. And that's, I've never seen that before, which is interesting. I still don't know why it happened. This was someone who had a really small audience still on LinkedIn. I'm not the smallest, but they had about 3,000 followers, which is,
Mhm.
it's great, but it's not a big influencer or someone. So that was really interesting to see. And another thing that I have seen is that after posting a couple of videos on LinkedIn in 1 month, someone who we work with got invited to doing trainings for people that were completely in their ICP. And that was also exceptional because I've never seen something go like that
Mhm.
in a month or so. And of course, if you boil it down in 3 months or so, we'll definitely have the KPIs going, for example, that we just talked about. There were going to be opportunities and hand raises as well. But that also helps when you amplify it with ads. So that's the
Mm.
combination. But yeah, it really amazes me that sometimes it can be really quickly.
Brilliant. And are some of the common mistakes companies are making when they attempt to implement authority marketing?
Yeah, one of the mistakes that I see when they go for authority marketing is that they forget the whole strategy behind it. So it's more or less
Okay.
easy to record something like this. But at the end of the day, you really have to think about, okay, what is something that really makes us unique? What is our point of view? Because you can talk about your solution, whatever your product all day, but you don't want to talk about your product.
Mhm.
You want to talk about problems that your clients are facing, and you want to talk about the journey and want to talk about the result. Those are the three most important things,
Mhm.
and your own unique point of view. So, for example, for me, I exited a SaaS company. I know a little bit about SaaS. I've seen 30 plus SaaS companies from the inside, and I can tell a lot about that, which makes my perspective unique about in the SaaS landscape.
Mhm.
And there's another thing is that your point of view is I am really not a big advocate for lead generation, as you might have noticed. I don't want to talk about leads. I want to talk about the opportunities that we're creating. And this is something that I like to talk about as well. So that is part of my point of view. Going back to what are some mistakes that pitfalls that might be around authority marketing is that think about those things before you start recording anything or creating any content. And your own unique point of view is not something that you develop overnight if you've never thought about it or done it, but it's something that you create going along. So that's something that to think about when you're doing all these sessions.
Hmm. As you take clients through this process of being interviewed and unpacking their subject matter expertise, are you providing some pointers or coaching around integrating storytelling and
Yeah,
just being
most definitely. Yeah.
personal engagement? If so, how does that work?
Yeah, Vinay, that's a great question because it's easy to just list. You even go to Chat GPT and ask, give me 10 interview questions about subject XYZ. And then here we go, let's hit record. That's definitely not the way to do it. But anyway, if you would even do that, it's still going to be quite hard to get the message across on camera as well. So what we're always doing is we just coach people as well. Some of them have never done this before, even though they've had conversations like this or one-on-one conversations in person.
Mhm.
So we'll coach them as well. And sometimes we'll go back, okay, this is great that you said it, but can you say it in a different way that it really resonates with the target audience? So maybe amplify some stuff, maybe add an example, maybe add some figures in it, some extra data. So we know that from experience that people like that. They want to see that or hear that
Mhm.
in the videos and the content that we create. So these are things that we do in the preparation, but also in the recording as well. And by now, we've got an enormous list of questions that we can ask for all the different stages that a buyer could be in. So we always try to mix and match those things, including the journey of the founder as well, because that's always interesting.
Hmm. Certainly. So, do you actually invest in coaching sessions prior to the actual
No,
recording, or is it
so that
just
we
on
do
the
that on the
fly?
fly because it's sometimes even hard to schedule 1 hour with a really busy CEO
Yep.
or founder, and it sometimes gets postponed. Or if they want, yeah,
Yep.
of course we can do it, but in practice we never do it because
Right.
they're like, okay, let's go.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. I certainly can identify with that. What are you seeing emerging trends that you predict will shape the future of B2B marketing? And if so, how are you advising companies to prepare for these changes?
Yeah, I think two trends in B2B marketing are the media company trend.
Mhm.
We're all going to be media companies. I think that's been said for years and years with the inbound, whatever, but that's one. And the video thing is also really important. Everyone's going to be a broadcaster and everyone's going to have some sort of studio to record podcasts in. So these are the two main things. And why is that? Video is going to be everywhere.
Mhm.
LinkedIn is pushing it. Whole generations are coming up. So those are the main reasons, actually. And these are the trends that we're talking about. And then there's, of course, we can't escape the AI part, right?
Mhm.
AI is going to be part of ideate, just little parts of creation, but an inspiration, of course. But it's
Mhm.
not going to be everything's going to be AI. No, definitely not. It's going to be just one tool in our toolbox that we're going to use with creating all this great video content in the whole buyer journey.
Hmm. Curious, with this process of creating content, you certainly have experience and you use AI to try and pick out the best snippets and things of that nature. Um, how do you iterate on improving the content in order to increase engagement when
Mhm.
perhaps there are occasions when you are flatlining in that doesn't seem to be providing like a hockey stick type of growth curve, so to speak? How do you iterate to improve on content when things can seem to be a bit meh, if you will?
At the end of the day, we're creating content, and if it doesn't work, we'll iterate on that. So the question is more or less, how do we know how we can iterate on that? And sometimes it's just, I don't know, some sort of subject that's missing or it's not just resonating with the audience. So how can we overcome that? Talk more to the audience, right?
Okay.
So the question that we got, the things that we're asking, are most of them are based on real questions from the audience that we know about, the prospects, but they're also subjects that are like the trends or things that or legislation stuff that's going on. So we really know what's going on in that market. It's not something that we pull out of thin air. And yes, still it happens that something just doesn't work. But if we analyze everything, we'll know what works and we'll just amplify that part. So, for example, the trends thing always works. We can do something about trends. We can do the top 3 trends, or we can just next month we can do one trend
Mhm.
that we just discussed from the last month. So this is an easy example. And sometimes if something doesn't work, we'll have to figure out a way to make it work, or go, okay, so that didn't work. The great thing about having an hour and creating so many snippets and live testing them almost on a platform like LinkedIn, it gives you
Mm.
direct feedback. So you know what works and what doesn't work. So
Okay.
I think it's been more direct than ever, because in the past we created lots of SEO content as well.
Mhm.
And you have to wait a long time before you
Yes.
would know if something will work, right?
Yeah.
So it's even more direct right now.
Brilliant. And so, from what I'm hearing, you're really helping clients shift towards more qualitative metrics. But I'd be interested to hear how you do so without losing sight of the need for measurable return on investment.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? Because without the need for.
Without losing sight for the need for measurable ROI or return on investment.
Okay, so yeah, the measurable ROI, we'll definitely look at that, because everything, most of our clients use HubSpot, so it's all connected into HubSpot. So
Okay.
we'll definitely know what works or what doesn't work, and
Mhm.
we'll know what SQOs are coming in from what thing that they've been doing, and they also self-attributed. So every month we'll create a list and we'll check what's been going on. And one easy way is to export all the things all the opportunities that we created, and put them into, not the names of course, but all the channels that they have self-attributed, put that into Chat GPT or any other LLM you're using, and
Mhm.
see and create a table, and then you'll know what's the uptrend or what not. That's really easy to do if you're doing the right thing.
Okay.
So to be honest, there are so many soft KPIs like engagement and stuff like that. Of course we will check it, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day we'll really look at the attribution stuff. And it's still not 100% complete, we know, or a 360 view, but it's actually really important for us that we are going to help them create more revenue by doing this.
The attribution piece is an interesting one because with the things that you do, I imagine most companies would also have a bit of budget, say running PPC ads or YouTube ads, etc. How do you have this conversation around what is actually paying dividends, as in what strategy is actually paying dividends as opposed to the other?
Yeah, so for PPC ads, most of the time it's Google ads that people will use. And especially in SaaS, I think there's so many mistakes for going Google ads in B2B, to be honest, because you want to go for the big category word and you can burn all your budget, and you will probably have 50 or 60% of people who are just looking for something and not even interested in, or just students or whatever, competitors. So if you want, you can really lose a lot of money by doing that. So what we're always doing with Google Ads is we'll create campaigns that are only focused on bottom of funnel keywords. For example, competitors or integrations or best category software,
Mhm.
things like that. Those are people that are already in the mindset of wanting to buy the software or evaluating the software, the category of software.
Mhm.
And that is where we put most of the money in. And then still that market is only the 3%, right? That's in market right now. So doesn't have to be that costly, to be honest. And this is also, I think, one of the biggest transitions. The leads, if you go for the big category keywords or the demos, whatever you would call them, the demos, let's put it that way, are going to be really costly because there's so much budget going to that main category keyword. And yes, it might work, but not anymore, because there's so many people, like I just mentioned, students, competitors that go for the demo. You still have to pay Google for that. So we always focus on bottom of funnel with PPC and Google Ads, except for LinkedIn, because that's the greatest way to just build the brand and just be there and create the awareness channel.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, the things that you do with authority marketing for a client need to be run pretty much holistically, as in no other marketing activity should be run at the same time in order to ensure complete attribution to your efforts.
Yeah, we try to do it holistically, definitely. Yeah, but you can't escape that sometimes people have got some campaigns or things going. There might be a webinar, whatever. Of course, some lead gen for a webinar that can work, but we try to do it holistically. Yeah, if we're talking about ads, we'll run a cold layer on LinkedIn, on an awareness layer. We'll do a warm layer that are people that are already interacted with either the website or with the ads. So that's the retargeting layer. Those the ads that we'll use are completely different because they are already in the mindset of, okay, tell me a little bit more, show me some cases or whatever. Okay, I want to do a demo, or those are definitely completely different. And we'll have the Google Ads running as well, but only on bottom of funnel. We also have the SEO, the organic post that we're creating from the founder. We have the organic posts on LinkedIn as well from the founder and other people who will share it as well. And we'll have the sales team outreach as well that we help with. I mean, can go wrong if you do all that, because you definitely will be there on ICP, and you can sprinkle in some YouTube as well if you want, because you will have some long form videos as well. So you're not going to just broadcast a webinar on your YouTube channel, because 9 out of 10 B2B companies only have a webinar or something on a YouTube channel. You will end up with a library of great content that will also appear in Google as well, because Google really favors YouTube for any result lately, I think. So yeah, it's holistic, all bound.
And could you perhaps share a time when your authority marketing approach didn't quite go as planned and how you pivoted to achieve success?
Yeah, it has been, to be honest, it has been quite a struggle. I think when we started with helping SaaS companies, because my old playbook was just create SEO. We were really king in, to be honest. We just create lots of content and links and stuff like that. And if you create more content than your competitor, and it's better, of course, you could easily win. Okay, it's not that easy, but it takes a lot of time, like we all know. And then with the challenges with Google and stuff like that. So at some point, we just had to take a couple of steps back. That our old playbooks that we used, it didn't work. So we really experimented. Actually, we only experimented for our own websites and our own agency website just to see what works. And we were fortunate enough to have 2 clients who also would like us to experiment with that, because that has been quite a challenge. And from that, we saw what worked. And that is the authority marketing playbook that we just discussed, and the whole holistic approach coming from that. So when we knew that works, and it took us, I think, it took us about 4 or 5 months to get the results and to dial everything in. We systemized everything like that, and we rolled that out to all our clients. And now it's our main focus, and people coming to us because this is what we advocate. This is what we see that works. And that was quite interesting to see.
I was just wondering, with this idea of authority marketing in the B2B space, is there perhaps an aspect or two that you find doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
Yeah, I think one of the things that in B2B that is not talked about that much is still the offline stuff. We all want to track everything well, want to be online, but why not just do something that works for people when you meet people? So we talked about roundtables. That's one great thing. But what we're also doing is we'll send a direct email. Yeah, that would be great. A direct mail, but then just handwritten. We'll just send it to about 100 people. We use it sometimes for webinar invites, but we also do it if we go for an account-based marketing campaign where we really select 100 accounts. we'll send over a handwritten note and a small QR code, and it really works for us to get a foot into the door. And these are things that, because it's so crowded in your inbox for email or LinkedIn, whatever, or phone calls even.
Mhm.
But when you get a letter from someone and it's even handwritten, we do a vanilla envelope, no logos, nothing. People are like, whoa, who's this? And they open it as well. So it comes down to not only being creative, but also maybe try to go the offline route as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Frank, thank you for sharing that. If, to wrap things up, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
Yeah, I think the top takeaway would be, first of all, well, the top, yeah, the top is always hard. But I think if we boil it down to two things: talk to your customers, and please keep on talking to them, and then their pains and things that they're going through. And if you know them, just make sure that you document them, talk about them, and share them, and how you solve them, and how do you know these things, and that will really show that what you're talking about. And if you do that consistently, you're going to be the authority in your market.
Right. And if listeners are curious, want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
Yeah, sure. You can go to our website, maxiality.com. We even got a free training to implement authority marketing in your own organization, or hit me up on LinkedIn.
Okay, we'll include links to that in the show notes. Frank, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.